What is up, guys? It's the AZ Gamer here, and today I have a video for you guys based on the top 5 GPUs for the money in December 2014. Now, these video cards are based on a price to performance ratio, meaning I'm not going to go for the cheapest video cards just because they're cheap and low cost, because obviously they perform terribly, and I'm not going for the most expensive graphics cards even though they perform the best for the most part, but I'm going for GPUs that are priced like very well for their performance, like even like crazy deals on Newegg, stuff like that. Like if there's a $400 video card on this list or whatever, not saying that there is, don't discard it being like, oh, that's expensive, that's not good for the money. But then again, it performs extremely well in that price range against its competitors and stuff. So without further ado, let's get into this. Starting at number 5, I have the long-failed AMD Radeon R7 This video card has been on many people's lists for top GPUs for the money. It will be for a long time. It's at priced around, depending on where you can get it, what kind of deals you can snatch, it's going to be between $100 and $130. At that price, you can play all games at 1080p at high settings for the most part. Some of the more demanding games like Metro Last Light, you'd prefer medium settings, but most of them you can play high settings, which is really good. Better, the R7 260X is on par with a little on par with the PS4, maybe a little under, but more powerful than the Xbox One if you're contemplating between a console and a PC. Now, moving on to number 4, we have the AMD Radeon R9 280X. This graphics card I used in my $600 build guide. It's right now, ever since Nvidia released their new 900 series graphics cards, AMD decided to drop the price on a bunch of their GPUs. The 280X now ranges from, you can even find it as low as $210 if you get the Diamond brand, though I don't really recommend that brand, it's not very well known, and all the way up to, of course, $280 or whatever. But the big notable ones are Sapphire. They have very good graphics cards, and they have the 280X for $220 on, I think, both Amazon and Newegg. You can also get the Asus one for $230. Basically, it's around the $220 range. At that price, you can max out every game at 1080p, every game, Crysis 3, no matter what it is, and even move on to 1440p if that's your thing, and play at medium to high settings. This card also has 3 GB of video memory, which is very useful in this day and age when games are using more and more high definition textures, higher resolutions, and of course 3 GB of VRAM means you can run 3 1080p monitors if you want. But of course, with a single graphics card, that's not really recommended for gaming. I'd recommend running them in Crossfire if you want something like that. Now, moving on to number 3, we have the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 980. Now, don't get carried away because of the price. This thing is around $550, $540, something like that. But the thing is, this is the fastest single GPU card in graphics card history. I said single GPU. There are cards like the Radeon R9 295X2 and the GTX Titan Z. Of course, those are better cards, but they're not single GPU. They have dual GPUs in them. This is a single GPU card, more powerful than the GTX 780 Ti Kingpin, more than the GTX Titan. This thing's a beast. This game can max out every game at 1440p and even possibly 1600p. If you're moving on to 4K, then you can at least play games at medium settings to high. But if you want to max out games at 4K, you kind of have to run them in SLI. But if you run GTX 980s in SLI, you have probably the best computer ever. If you try to run your GPU through 3D Mark, it'll get really good scores. The 980 has 4 GB of VRAM. Awesome, a step up from the R9 280X's 3 gigs of VRAM. The GTX 780 Ti 780 and stuff have 3 gigs of VRAM. The 980 is an absolute beast. Now, there's a reason why, of course, that it's 3rd place on the list. While it does have a lot of performance, $550 is a lot of money to shell out for a video card. That's more than the cost of a next generation console itself. Now, that aside, the video card's very good. I would recommend it for those chasing the highest performance while not trying to SLI, or maybe a $1,500 build, something like that. The GTX 980 is really good. Make sure you have a good CPU, of course, alongside it. So for the money, you get crazy performance for around the same price a GTX 780 Ti used to be, and this is almost twice the performance of that card. Now, moving on to number 2, it's kind of like 2 cards here, but basically one, we have the AMD Radeon R9 290 and 290X, but basically the 290X is basically an overclocked R9 290, so we're going to stick to talking about the 290 here. And the reason this is number 2 on the list is because ever since the 900 series release from Nvidia, and like I said earlier, AMD dropped the price on many other video cards, mainly the R9 290 and 290X. Now the 290, it could be found for as low as $260. What you're getting is 4 gigabytes of VRAM, a card that's basically the equivalent of the GTX 780, possibly the GTX 970, though I doubt that. And you get a lot, like a 512-bit memory bus. Again, I'll say again, 4 gigabytes of VRAM is really useful. A game like Middle Earth that has ultra textures, VRAM will help. You can run with 3 1440p monitors if you want. This is a lot of VRAM. This thing is a beast. It maxes. If you want to look at it in performance terms, it maxes out every game at 1080p, no brainer, 60 FPS minimum, 1440p. Pretty sure you can max out games that are some of the more demanding games. Well, of course, something like high settings maybe, but for 4K you could even play at 4K, but I'd recommend running them in Crossfire. But it has enough VRAM to tackle anything. You can use it as GPU acceleration, like something like Sony Vegas, Adobe Premiere, if you're into video editing. And I wouldn't really recommend the 290X because you can just get a 290 with a good cooler, one of like the MSI ones, Asus, and just overclock it and you have 290X performance. So yeah, definitely go for the 290. It's really low priced on Newegg, and I'm mainly looking at Newegg. Amazon, I guess it's a decent price. I don't know for sure, but Newegg, I know for sure it's a really good price. Now, number 1, I think you guys already know it before I'm going to say it. It's easily, ever since Nvidia announced it like a couple months back, it's the king, and I think it will be for a long time in price to performance. The Nvidia GeForce GTX 970. For $330 to $350, you get easily the second fastest single GPU card in the market right now, under the 980. Believe it or not, it's even better than the 290X, if not maybe probably slightly better, 5 FPS more in certain games, but it still has a bunch of Nvidia's features like CUDA, PhysX, Shadowplay, stuff like that. So of course it's got the upper hand on the 290. It's more expensive, but you get a lot more performance. It's even more powerful than the GTX 780 Ti, which is still priced at $500. I think Nvidia didn't want to drop the prices on those because I guess they're just focused on 900 series and they're kind of discontinuing those cards. The 970 it's a great deal. You can get the EVGA superclocked version, which is awesome, for like $340. Superclocked version of Nvidia cards used to be a lot more expensive than the reference cards, but in this case it's probably similar, if not cheaper than the reference card, although I don't think you can buy the reference card retail. You have to get it from Nvidia themselves. I'm not too sure about that, I wouldn't know, but overall the GTX 970 will be the king for a long time in terms of price to performance. If you're trying to get a high performance PC, but you don't want to spend too much, but you really want that maxing out games at 1440p high resolutions, or even if you play at 1080p, you want to max out games for many years to come, the GeForce GTX 970 is easily the best deal. Of course, overall, all these graphics cards are good choices. I'd recommend the 260X if you're low budget but you want good performance, and the 280X is decent at low 200 if you're willing to shell out that much. Though I'd kind of go a little higher and invest in the 290. It's a really good card, more VRAM and bigger memory bus and a lot more texture units, ROP units, shaders, stuff like that, because of course those are also important in video cards. And then the GTX 970 is basically the main one I recommend here. The 980, of course, take that if you're someone spending $2,000 on a rig. You want max performance possible, go for the 980. It's really well priced for its performance, even though it's $550. That's a very good price. But the thing about the GTX 970 is, if it's $350 alone, if you get them in SLI, which is crazy performance by the way, that's like $700 total, which is $150 more than a single 980. But you're outperforming it by a bunch. Now, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like, and let me know in the comments if you're getting any of these graphics cards. If you have any of these graphics cards, what graphics cards you contemplate on getting, and if you have any questions for me based on these graphics cards or other ones you might have in mind. If you're not really into these, definitely ask me. I will definitely answer all your comments, no matter what they are, even insults, whatever. I don't care. And thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you guys on the next one.